Hi everyone, and welcome to my channel where I talk about movies. The movie I want to talk about today comes from 1958, Some Came Running, and this stars Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, Shirley MacLaine, directed by Vincent Minnelli. And this is currently streaming on the Criterion channel under a curated section called Murderous Melodramas, but I believe it is also available in Blu-ray. And this is a story that begins with a Greyhound bus crossing the Ohio River and coming into a small town. And when the bus stops, there's a passenger asleep who the bus driver says, "This is Parkland, this is your stop," because he's there as a result of a drunken party the night before. The bus driver tells him, "Your friends put you on this bus and told him to send him to Parkland." And Parkland happens to be his hometown, and he hasn't been there in 16 years, and he has no desire to be there at all. And the movie is about this man, Frank Sinatra, playing a character called Dave. This is about his relationships with four different people. The first one begins with Ginny, Shirley MacLaine, who is also on the bus sleeping, and she stumbles out after Dave. Dave can't even remember who she is, but Shirley MacLaine's character Ginny, she has fallen madly in love with Dave back in Chicago, where this bus originated, and he was nice to her and invited her to go along. Dave can't remember it. Dave's a good guy. He gives her some money, go back to Chicago. But she, like I say, she has fallen madly in love with Dave. And Ginny would be seen in the 1950s probably called a floozy, a party girl. She is not very bright, and but she's very pretty. She's authentic, and that makes her appealing. And also what makes her appealing to Dave is her kind of unconditional love. So Dave is very much unlike Ginny in that he is an intellectual, or at least he is a writer. He's in an army uniform, but it is implied that he has just gotten out of the army and has won quite a big score in a poker game back in Chicago. And he has been a writer, a published writer. He has a novel, a short story, but nobody read them. Nobody much liked them, except for a character we're going to meet soon in the movie. And he's sort of given up the idea, but he is toting around a short story that he has been working on for a long time. So he's basically been earning his money as a gambler. And Dave is now back in his hometown, and his older brother is there, who has no desire to see him, but he has become sort of a pillar of the community. He inherited his wife's father's jewelry store, her house, a beautiful house in the bluffs overlooking the Ohio River. But Dave is resentful of his older brother because when his older brother married, he put Dave into kind of a orphanage or a school to get him away because his wife wanted nothing to do with Frank's younger brother. And he's worried about what he's going to do. Frank views his younger brother as a troublemaker, as does his wife, but then they do invite him up to their home because it just wouldn't look right if they would return home and not be greeted by his family. So they invite friends over, a professor and his daughter, and the daughter is Gwen. She plays a big part in this role, and she's played by Martha Heyer. And and she knows who Dave is. She's an English professor. She's rather buttoned up, but cold to Dave's advances, because just as Ginny is all over Dave, Dave is all over Gwen, and she knows. But Gwen is only interested in nurturing Dave as a writer. But Dave doesn't see it that way. So she rebuffs him. Dave goes back with Ginny, this is the Shirley MacLaine character, And there's one more relationship to talk about, and that's Day's relationship with Bama. Bama, played by Dean Martin, and he is a professional gambler. And they strike up an immediate friendship at Smitty's bar, and they join forces, and they travel around and playing cards, whilst Dave is still trying to woo Gwen, to penetrate her icy facade, and she manages to get the short story that he's been carrying around published. So this is based on a novel by James Jones, and James Jones's previous novel, From Here to Eternity, was a big hit and won many Academy Awards. Frank Sinatra had his real dramatic breakout role in From Here to Eternity, and James Jones had two other significant novels. This is Some Came Running, which came next, but then his third novel, which you could probably classify as kind of World War II trilogy, is The Thin Red Line, which is about warfare, the war in the Pacific, based on Guadalcanal. From Here to Eternity was based at Pearl Harbor concludes in the attack on Pearl Harbor. And The Thin Red Line then covers actual warfare. It's a very grueling novel. I've read both of those two novels. It's a harrowing view of World War II, very difficult to get through. And of course, it was made into actually two films, a more standard adaptation in the 1960s, and then Terrence Malick's adaptation, I guess that was in the 90s or the early 2000s. So this is the novel, Some Came Running is the novel of the coming home, what it was like for soldiers to come home. Now, that's very vague. In the movie, in the novel, it's, I think, 1948. It's kind of vague here as to what actually the actual year is. But we get in this movie, we get a very vivid view of small town America as it looked in the 1950s, the cars, the clothes. We get the social problems that were part of the 1950s, the sexual repression, the hypocrisy, the social climbing. It's all there. This is a critique. This is a beautiful vision of small town America. And in fact, I had a lifelong desire to go visit Madison, Indiana, where the exteriors were filmed. It's called Parkman in the movie. And they take advantage of that. If you go there, and I never made it, if you go there, they do give you brochures, and they point out the various locations that were used, because the town was used extensively and I guess exclusively in its exteriors in Madison, Indiana. So it is a critique of small town America, and I talked about this book here to cinema in my last video, which was a collection of translations of reviews by new wave directors before they became directors. They were critics, and they often marveled at how in the Hollywood studio system, an industry that would seemingly limit the freedom of what could be done in a motion picture, and certainly the production code did. But they were always, the Cahiers du Cinema critics were always amazed at what critiques our movies, especially in the 1950s, our critiques of American society were allowed to be filmed, and certainly Some Came Running, and some of the aspects I just mentioned, is very much a critique of 1950s America. It's also was filmed in CinemaScope. At the end of this book I just showed, there's a whole section on CinemaScope, which was a new process in the 1950s and much debated. Some directors did not want to work with the widescreen format, the anamorphic format, and especially some of the big time directors like John Ford. He eventually did make I think a couple films in CinemaScope. This was 20th Century's refinement of invention, I think, goes back to the late 20s, early 30s, and being done to lure audiences back from their television. In the early 1950s, the ticket sales for movies were plummeting because people didn't want to leave their television sets. So 20th Century Fox wanted a new experience, a more spectacular experience in using this widescreen anamorphic process to do that. And director Vincent Minnelli was just a master at this. Minnelli he started out as a set designer. This movie, the set designs in this movie is great. Him and a cinematographer fill up the screen with information. They do long takes, and that's what the New Wave critics admired, because you were able to look at a much more, you were getting much more information, and you could choose for yourself whether you're going to watch this or you're going to watch that, similar to what you experience when you go to the theater, then you go to live theater. And long takes was with Frank Sinatra. Sinatra he was adamant when he cemented his movie stardom that he was only going to do one take, and that was it. You got to get it on my first take. Well, Minnelli uses long takes here with dialogue and people moving about. It must have been quite. It must have been quite difficult to set up as long takes do, because the actors have to remember a lot of dialogue. They have to move around the set. So this is one of the great. Some Came Running is one of the great examples, I think, of CinemaScope. And especially when you get to the ending, Minnelli was very good at melodrama. He was very good at amping up the emotional intensity. Here in Parkman, Indiana, they're celebrating some anniversary of their town's founding, so they have this huge carnival. It seems like everybody in the whole area was recruited as extras for this scene, and we get, in the beginning of the film, under the titles, we have this very startling score by Elmer Bernstein. It's amazing score, and then at this final melodramatic conclusion to the movie, it comes back into full force, and it's often thought of as being very garish, with all the red lights. There's lots of red in this final sequence, traveling camera movements, and it's suspenseful. A lot of critics didn't like this ending. It's very operatic. I think Minnelli actually, directed operas just like Luchino Visconti did in Italy, and he's very good when he ramps up the melodrama. So the actors here, and so this ending is, I love this movie. I saw this movie when I was a kid. It made a deep impression on me. It's always stuck with me. The actors here are so good. Martha Hire as Gwen, who has some just terrific scenes in this film, and she was nominated for Academy Award Best Supporting Actor. She won the Golden Globe Award for that year for Best Supporting Actor. Sinatra won the Best Actors in the Golden Globe. I don't think he was nominated for in the Oscars. Arthur Kennedy, very good in a supporting role. Shirley MacLaine, some people think she's over the top here. I found her quite enchanting in her naivety. I thought it was a good performance. And then we have to talk about Dean Martin playing Bama. This I think may have been his first role after he cut the cord with Jerry Lewis, so he really acquits himself well. He's a very charismatic type presence. And going back to the Cahiers du Cinema, in which Some Came Running made number 5, I think, in the 1958 poll of Cahiers critics. But if you've ever seen Contempt, La Méprise by Jean-Luc Godard, in that movie, Godard pays tribute to Bama's character in Some Came Running as Michelle Piccoli, in the character of Michelle Piccoli, because Bama never takes off his hat. And wherever he goes, restaurants, and when he goes, in the house, the hat is always on. They try to take it off, he said, "No." And in Contempt, Michelle Piccoli famously takes a bath with his hat on in tribute. And I believe my memory is right, he is reading the novel, Some Came Running. French critics love to pay these kind of tributes. Bernard Tavernier, when he made Coup de Torchon, which I reviewed a couple weeks ago, or a couple months ago, I guess. The character of the demented sheriff, played by Philippe Noiret, is wearing this pink, very vivid pink shirt, and that was Tavernier's tribute to Dean Martin again in Howard Hawks' Rio Bravo, where Dean Martin is also wears a pink shirt. So the reception of the film was pretty good. I mean, obviously there was Academy Award nominations and wins in other award programs, but and it did well. I found it 10th on the best grossing films of the year. The only contemporaneous full review I read was by Boz Carther, and he didn't like it, and panned the hokiness of it. And certainly there are subplots in Some Came Running which are really kind of unnecessary. But overall, this is just a gorgeous film to look at, even if you don't like the plot, and you can see it on a big screen television. I think you're going to find it fascinating to look at, and hopefully you'll have a pretty good emotional experience, which is what I have always had. So thanks a lot for everybody who listened. I do appreciate it. Comments are welcome. Take care.